Welcome to Upwards, sponsored by the Microsoft Aspire Experience, where we share stories and insights to help you grow 1% better in your personal and professional life every episode. Here are your hosts for today's episode, Alex Kessel and Jake Hewson.
Hello, Upwardians. Thanks for joining in for this episode. I am your better host, Jake Hewson, and I am accompanied by my co-host, Alex Kessel. How are you doing today, Alex?
They didn't even need you to intro me. As soon as you say that you're the better host, they know immediately that it's you and me. Like, that is because they know it's objectively false. So I think that's interesting, but I'm doing pretty well here, Jake. We've got Caroline Jones on our podcast today. She's got a pretty awesome story and perspective that I'm really excited for everyone to hear about just kind of the value of building some relationships and taking some chances. So really excited for you guys to listen in. And without further ado, let's roll the episode.
Roll it. Hey, Caroline, thanks so much for being on the show today. How are you doing?
Jake, I am so happy to be here. It's good to see you and Alex again. I know it's been 2 years, I guess, now since we were all together at the beginning of our Aspire experience. So it's great to see y'all.
So for our listeners that don't know, Alex, Caroline, and I actually all started in the same cohort with Microsoft coming right out of undergrad. We've been along the same kind of early in career and Aspire path since we started. But for those that are listening, and Caroline, why don't you just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, maybe some of your career journey and how you've gotten to where you're at and just what you're currently doing at Microsoft.
Awesome. Yeah, happy to. I went to Georgia Tech for my undergraduate degree and I majored in aerospace engineering. So I loved that and I love math and science. And that's kind of how I was able to kind of determine which engineering degree I wanted to get. And I was really excited about getting that. But as I was completing certain internships and trying to decide what I wanted to do with my career, I determined that I wanted to go into more of a customer-facing role. So to kind of get a little bit deeper into my internship experience, in college, I was kind of at a place where I was just ready to say yes to anything that came my way. So my internship experience starts with a carpet factory that I worked at for a summer. And that was my first internship.
That's really interesting.
And that's where my resume begins. But then from there, I went and worked at an aerospace engineering factory. And then also I ended up getting some research experience with NASA. And based off of all those experiences and doing work in aerospace and seeing what it's like to be an actual day-to-day engineer, that's when I kind of began to realize and make decisions on the fact that I wanted to be more customer facing. And I love talking. I'll talk your ear off, and I love human interaction and being able to really help people is what I like. So with that information, I decided, hey, let's check out sales. And you can imagine the reactions I got from my professors and my fellow colleagues in engineering school that they said, you're doing what with an AE degree? But I ended up saying, I want to try out sales. The only sales opportunity that I could actually find was in software sales. So that was out of the DC area. It was in federal software sales, and I just did that for a summer, and they ended up extending the offer to do it throughout the school year, but I realized that I really, really liked that. So I said, you know what, if I can get an offer here, then I want to try for the best. And obviously I'm biased, but in my mind, the best at cloud computing is Microsoft. I was able to get into the interview loop there, and I did not intern at Microsoft, and it's been a dream ever since. So now I am an Azure specialist. I am on Department of Defense accounts. So what that means essentially is that I sell Azure to the Department of Defense.
So a little bit of a career there.
I don't know if you guys are still with me because it's kind of a zigzag path of what kind of decisions and quarter life crises I was having it multiple times, but we got there.
Well, so I come from an engineering school as well, and going into the sales sector, I know exactly what you mean when they give you the look of like, you're going to the dark side.
Right.
But the thing that sticks out to me here is I visited Georgia Tech and I'm aware of the ratio there, if you know what I mean,
Yeah.
as is present at most engineering schools. And frankly, within the federal government and Department of Defense especially. And so I wanted to ask, what's it been like working in a space where there's not a lot of women and you're very clearly this incredibly capable person who just comes in by storm? What's that journey been like?
You're exactly right in terms of ratios. And since I was 18 and started at Georgia Tech, I very quickly was aware that in many rooms I was the only female. And if I wasn't the only female in my college classes, I was typically one of a handful of females. So, and then to be honest with you, in my current role too, as I work with the Department of Defense, as the demographic is, there still are not a lot of females in that group, especially since I work with a lot of these decision makers at a higher level. So it's funny the similarities that I see, but one thing I have taken away from it is that I stopped noticing it. So I think it's funny because the other day, actually, someone who was newer to Microsoft, she paid me on the side and she said, "Oh my gosh, we're the only women on this call." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't even notice at this point."
Yeah.
And I think that is something that's important to kind of take away just from women and girls who may be experiencing a little bit of a ratio, as you said. But I think it's important to know that you absolutely belong in the room. And a majority of the time, the only person saying, "I don't belong here and this is off," is you in your own head. So I think it's important to kind of shake that as fast as you can and see, people as people and guys as guys, and don't try to fit that though, So it's definitely been a learning experience, but towards the end of college, I got to that point of not even noticing that I was the only female there. And now it's really like that in work and career too. Our teams and I think Microsoft in general do a great job. No one would ever discount me based on the fact that I'm a woman.
Absolutely. I know coming out of the Aspire program, and I think a lot of early in careers in general are looking for ways to hit the ground floor running and make as much impact from day one. And as you, Alex, and I know, I remember feeling oh, I want to know Microsoft inside and out in the first week. And that is obviously impossible. And it's
so impossible.
Almost excruciating when you're like, oh crap, this is going to take a while. You've been able to really progress in your career a lot and rise in the ranks very quickly and find a lot of success at Microsoft. For you, Caroline, when you came in, was it at the front of your mind that I want to come in and I want to make as much impact and get promoted and rise the ranks as quickly as possible as an early in career? Or was it something that was just kind of in the back of your mind that you're like, I just want to learn, and if promotions come? How did you go about it when you first joined Microsoft?
So it's funny. I remember thinking, and you guys probably remember this too, but in a couple of our early sessions, they were kind of like this, where we had some older and more experienced former aspires who were talking about their promotion journey and how they got promoted and things like that. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I barely got my foot in the door here. How could if I never get promoted, I'm fine as long as I can just stay here and do my job. Right. So that was really the last thing on my mind. I will say when I started, I was extremely happy to even be in the room with you guys. I mean, I was elated about that. And with that comes, of course, extreme responsibility, right? So I was more so focused on how can I do my job to the best of my ability? Because I knew at that point, this is one thing that I hope that everybody knows coming out of college, is that if you finish college or even if you finish high school, we've all done really challenging things. You can do anything. You can learn anything. So that was one thing that I think that my engineering background kind of got, I was like, wow, that felt impossible. And that was incredibly challenging. So if I did that, I know I can do this. So I was very focused on how can I work extremely hard at what I do, but at the same time, how do I stay true to myself and not become a form of someone else? Because I think that we often see that in sales and maybe in competitive college classes or things like that is that if people try to fit a different mold, of course, then you're not being yourself and you're not going to be as successful. So there were a couple things in my mind. It was just, how can I work as hard as possible? How can I learn as much as I can as fast as possible? And then with that, how can I provide value in that way? And I'll tell you, shockingly, focusing on those things and focusing on how I can just do my best and not be caught up in other things such as bonuses and promotions and things like that. It is so funny how it comes with bonuses and promotions, because the great thing too is that people see that and people hear Microsoft, they will absolutely reward you for it.
I think that's really encouraging to hear. You said a few different things, how can I do the job to the best of my ability and not fit someone else's mold? And I wanted to just learn, what is the Caroline mold then? What, not to say that someone else is going to apply this, but not necessarily your brand, but just the strengths and energy that you bring. What was it like finding ways to apply those things to keep you from just focusing on being someone else? I remember at one point, you mentioned you love speaking. You were speaking to us at a federal training event, 4 months in, and we were all like, what the heck? How did you get up here? And I mean, the content aside, which was awesome, we were all just like, where did this come from? And so that opportunity, how did that happen? Or how did you find similar type opportunities to apply your strengths?
Well, the Caroline shaped mold is a mess and it's challenging. Ask my manager or anybody who works with me. But so I'll say that, looking at a lot of different styles of sales, there are a lot of different kind of ways that people treat their job and treat customer interaction. And I think that the Caroline mold would be one. I realized that I really do love talking to people, and it's my favorite part of my job. Coming off of doing a lot of engineering work where you are 8 hours a day focused on something and you never really presented or talked to people about it that much. And that was, my opinion of what I saw. But when I came into this sales role, it was I felt like I had been released on a playground. I was like, you mean it's my job to talk to people and learn from people internally and be able to, learn about people's roles internally and learn about Microsoft solutions from the experts that are here. It was like I struck gold. So what I started doing is I realized that I could learn a lot from a lot of different people. And then also I could really build up my, I hate using this word, network. I hate when people say, let's network. But what else can we call it? Building a community at work. So I realized, for lack of a better word, I did very early build up my network. Now, what that started with was an excellent relationship with my manager and with my mentors on my team. So I built out a great relationship with them, mostly because they are some of the best people in the world and they're awesome, but just kind of word of mouth of who they would connect me with. And I would go into the office as much as I could. I know that we can't do that right now, but when we can, I absolutely encourage you to do that, or show up to the virtual happy hour, or show up to the virtual, all hands with your video on, things like that. And slowly but surely you get connected and get connected and get connected. So it's actually funny. And I think that I will say that the majority of my success and my opportunities thus far, just from different internships and from getting a role at Microsoft and from having success thus far at Microsoft, or even having a bigger platform to present outside of work and other clubs and societies that I'm in. All of that has come from other people, I will say. It has all come from people who have helped me up along the way. It has come from managers, and it has come from colleagues who have helped me out. So that is what is extremely important is, one, building out that network, but also once we're here and even wherever you are in life, make sure to help those behind you. We'll get into that a little bit later too. But funny thing, you mentioned the federal event that I presented at. I think it was 3 months in or something. Yeah, 4 months in.
Yeah, something like that.
Y'all know I had no idea what I was talking about. I was talking about Azure, but we were able to nail down a presentation. But the funny part is that the reason I got that opportunity was because I was talking to another manager, and I was just being myself, and I like made a joke or something, and he just was like, oh my gosh, I know what you're going to do next month. And I was like, what are you talking about? So all that being said, all of it has come from network and knowing people who could reach out a hand and give you another opportunity. And also, I mean, and from all that, it was me not trying to fit someone else's mold, because it's just nearly impossible. Like, I could never be the two of you. I mean, if someone asked me to run a podcast, I'm stumbling over my words as it is. I can't even imagine hosting the thing, but you guys do it so well.
I think that's a really important note. I mean, we're very relational people. We're very communal people. But I think that sometimes what we discount, or when people hear, oh, build your network and grow your connections. Like me, I cast my net way too wide, tried to like meet everybody, and then I couldn't sustain relationships with any of them. Mm-hmm. And more critically, I couldn't do one thing with them that was provide value back to my network as well. Okay. I think there's definitely a like, oh, hey, I want to connect with you. And then there's the, oh, we can be in a good relationship together. Like, you enjoy my conversation, my line of thought. We talk about things at work or outside of work, some form of providing value. And I think what you mentioned that is a hidden aspect to the story you just told was the guy who hooked you up with the presentation thought that something you said was hilarious. I mean, like it or not, you provided him some value up front that he was like, I know, we're gonna multiply this. So I think that that's really interesting to think about too, when you're looking at like this network of success, is how you're bringing the value that you do have to people up front as well, which you've articulated. So
I love that point. And I think, like I said, I wish we could rebrand network, because to me, coming out of college, and I was thinking that network meant number of LinkedIn connections.
LinkedIn Sales Navigator.
Yeah, literally. I thought that that's what that meant. And it doesn't. You're exactly right. And now I'm going through and I'm like, oh, wow, I should provide more value to that person. But it really does mean it's just the meaningful relationships. And that's one part of, whenever I'm nervous and meeting someone that's super high up or things like that, I do think, what can I bring that's not like something that's like, oh, well, I closed this deal, last week or whatever, but something that contributes to human connection and contributes to, hey, I appreciate your existence. And I think that it's an honor to meet you. But yeah, you're exactly right on providing value and having those meaningful relationships.
Yeah, I love what you mentioned, Caroline, about like, it doesn't have to be so complicated in terms of like, oh, I crushed this number, or look at like some way I like helped you in your career, and just like, because that's at times when I want to network or meet people that in my mind are very successful, I'm like, how can I provide value for them? Like, they're so successful and I feel like they're so untouchable. But what you mentioned, it's like just the human connection, just even showing someone that you appreciate what they've done for you, or, hey, you did this and I learned a ton from you and I just want to give you kudos for that. So I think the human connection is so important. And something that I want to ask you that I think is really interesting that you do outside of Microsoft, and it has honestly probably helped you with bringing your Caroline brand into Microsoft, is like the stand-up comedy that you have done. How did you even get into something like that? Because for me, like, I think Alex and I are pretty comfortable with like public speaking. Everyone gets nervous, but one thing that absolutely like terrifies me the thought of is like standing up in front of a crowd and having to be funny.
Asking
like
people
that
to judge
absolutely
your humor.
terrifies me. Like, how did you even get into something like that? Did it come naturally to you, or were you like, this is very uncomfortable and I want to just push myself towards it?
It is one of the hardest things I've ever done. It is absolutely nerve-wracking. And I'm going to begin this by saying, I highly encourage, I'm looking the two of you in the eye right now, and I'm talking to everybody on who's listening. One of the best things that you can do for yourself is sign up for a stand-up comedy open mic. It has absolutely 180'd my confidence. It has helped me with my confidence in public speaking, obviously. That's the number one thing that you need right there, is public speaking, right? And then it's also helped me with my storytelling. And with my current job, I mean, to be honest, that's what I do every day of the week now, is I storytell, meaning that I put together what the customer needs to hear based on their current needs and their current goals, and I tell that story. So how I kind of got going with the stand-up comedy is I've always liked to make people laugh, and I think that that's something that a lot of people have in common. I know that you guys like to make people laugh. I think that a lot of people like to make people laugh. So again, I will say, if you like to make people laugh, you've got to try it. I've always liked to make people laugh, and I do this from classrooms. I, am the classic class clown, I will say. And I used to do kind of, we'll call it mini bits, I guess, for my sorority in college. And I didn't really, sometimes know it at the time, but I'm like, well, that was a bit, or for my family or whatever. And I love, making groups of people laugh. So how this came about is I kind of always had it in the back of my mind a little bit that I was like, you know what, I feel like I should do that. But to be honest, talking about fitting molds, I don't really fit the mold of a comedian, because I found myself, this was back when I was working at an aerospace engineering company for a summer when I was interning. And like we discussed earlier, I wasn't super passionate about my job. And this is kind of how I look at what I like to do, is I wasn't passionate about my job. I wasn't passionate about what my manager did, or his manager or his manager. And I was like, because what my thought was, if I come here and climb the ladder, will I like it? And the answer was leaning towards a no. So I was having this 20-year-old crisis, and I was living in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which I really knew nothing about, but I love Tulsa, sidebar. But also I was like, you know what a time. I don't know anybody here. I really need to just do this for myself, because I just have no idea what I'm doing in any aspect of my life. So might as well throw myself into it. So I joined a comedy class in Tulsa, and it was like it's like a Sunday night thing. And then that kind of turned into, it was a storytelling class essentially. And then that turned into me getting to do it like on some Saturday and Sunday nights out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I was keeping it a secret from everyone I knew at the time.
Really?
Oh yeah. It was my greatest fear that my internship friends would come in and see this. So
what are you doing Saturday? I'm busy with nothing, but I can't come.
No joke. I remember telling my friends, they were like, what plans do you have in Tulsa other than us? And I'm like, But so I ended up doing it out there. And then when I came back to Atlanta, I did it for some friends too. And now that's one little secret about stand-up comedy is, for me, I far prefer to make strangers laugh than my friends, because my friends are sitting there watching me and they're probably like, we've seen better. It's like, that's not your best. Come on, do that other joke. You know what I mean? So I love a group of strangers. And that's another aspect of stand-up comedy is people will say, have you bombed? And absolutely. And I actually bombed hugely the night that all of my friends came to watch me in Atlanta. So
of course it was that time.
Right. I know. So that was lovely. But no, it's been, and it really was a huge shift and it's helped me professionally. It has helped me just in my social confidence. And it truly helps me at my day-to-day job, which is just hilarious. No pun intended. But the other thing too is that it was so funny when my current manager and my used to be skit manager, and they were interviewing me for this job when I was coming out of college, and I wanted this job so bad. And they asked me at the end of the interview, they're like, hold on, I see that you have stand-up comedy on your resume.
Oh, no.
And I'm like,
no.
I'm like, oh gosh.
Oh, you read that wrong.
Right. I'm like, oh, should I not put that on there? I'm like, they're not going to put me in front of the DOD when I'm a stand-up comedian, right? But yeah, and so, they loved it. They continue to love it. I get sick of being asked to make jokes, but that's just part of the job.
I was about to say, I'm sure whenever you tell anyone you do stand-up comedy, they're probably like, well, tell me a joke, Caroline.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not an on-call stand-up comedian. Like, what is that?
You gotta lead your audience into it. You can't just crack puns.
It's telling stories.
No, that's awesome. And I love that that kind of a separate call to action there where you're like, I recommend everyone do stand-up comedy. And honestly, I felt the same way. Like, I have done public singing just to like face that fear, and I've done awesome. Improv, which like improv still scares me because it's quite literally you're just doing everything that you have no idea what's coming. I still hate it. But again, I feel like I honestly need to go do a session of stand-up comedy to kind of face that fear. And to me, I feel like if I do stand-up comedy, everything else is easy after that.
It truly feels that way. And honestly, like if you were to say, Caroline, tonight you're performing, I would be so nervous too. Everything feels easier after that. Customer conversations, so much easier after that. And now, I mean, you can ask my teammates, I'm in this virtual environment where I'm doing Teams calls and telling the customer story there essentially. And I still love to just crack jokes on customer meetings and Teams calls. And there's nothing like cracking a joke and then have everyone's mic stay muted. So that's a good one too.
You've silenced the crowd. They weren't coming off mute anyway.
Right. My favorite feature is the Teams like laughing signal. So at least they can just click a button and tell you that was cringeworthy, but I'm going to laugh.
Yeah. At least they know.
Right.
So we're getting close to the end of the episode, Caroline, and we have one more question after this, but something that we always want to end our episodes with or try and go to a call to action. And I think that you've had so much success, like you mentioned, not just at Microsoft and in your role, but internships, things outside of Microsoft. A lot of it, like you said, has been because of other people and the relationships that you've been able to form. And because you have been able to get out there, for those that maybe are uncomfortable or just like intimidated by networking and they are wanting to go out there and genuinely build relationships with others, bring their authentic selves to others and their brand, what's a piece of actionable advice you could give someone that wants to begin doing that and get better at building those relationships?
Great question, because I know it can be so intimidating, but I think the best piece of advice is treat people like a friend. So go into whether it's, the president of the United States or the new intern, go into it like they are your friend and do what you do best, which is, make sure that you make them feel welcome and you're totally kind to them. But at the same time, have something in mind that you want to either provide to them or that you want to learn from them. And don't let that be something that's like something generic that you find from these networking pages of whatever that may be. But just let that be, make sure you bring the human element to it, because that really is what's going to matter. So the call to action, honestly, too little, because I know people a lot of times want tangible things, right? 2 things that help me with networking, and it is a long and slow process. This is not I now have a big network, because that's impossible, because you're building human relationships. So you can't just do this overnight. It has truly taken me the past 2.5 years to build out the network that I do have at Microsoft. And it's still small. So the 2 things that I would say are, 1, when you have a good thought about someone, don't suppress it. So, for example, yesterday I heard a manager give a great presentation on a really big call. And I, was kind of like, oh, wow, that was a great presentation. Maybe I should tell him. And then I was like, oh, no, like he's a manager. But then I'm like, if I'm not telling him, who's telling him? So I pinged him and said, hey, that was awesome. And then he was like, oh, I was nervous about this part. And then I was able to, to start a real conversation and chat with him about that. The other piece of kind of, this is a trick and tip too for local networking. And I say this because it worked for me yesterday as well, is that, whenever you make a connection with someone, or instead of just like, hey, how are you? Or like something in passing, add on to that, something like, would love to speak with you again. It's been a while since we caught up. And I will always say, if they're local and if you're comfortable with this in a COVID environment, I will say, I would love to meet up for coffee, lunch, or drinks. And they will often take you up on that. And then it actually has helped me build a bigger network, because then I am it loops me in with this other, group of people that they wanted to sync up with too. So those are 2 big pieces of it. My call to action there is tell people when they're doing a good job at work. And 2, ask people to coffee, lunch, or drinks. And then 3, I'm going to have one more call to action, is help people below you. So if there are people who are maybe new to role, or if they are struggling with a certain project or something like that, reach out and see how you can help. A lot of the time, help begins with encouragement as well. So if you want to reach out and encourage them, or even publicly shout them out to their manager or something like that, then that would be good too. So help someone, coffee, lunch, or drinks, and then also make sure that you tell people when they're doing a good job, and it absolutely gets returned.
Beautiful.
I love it.
Yeah.
Caroline, give us a call to action. Oh, here's 3.
Here's 3.
3 for the price of 1. Call today. We'll double your offer for only $19.99.
I'll be here all day.
Caroline, thanks so much for coming on the show. We really loved having you here.
Alex and Jake, I forgot we were recording pretty much through the time. So I'm so happy to just catch up with you guys. And thanks for having me on. Love your podcast.
Thanks for listening to Upwards. Be sure to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform and leave us a review. Learn more about the Microsoft Aspire experience at aka.ms/Microsoft Aspire experience. We'll catch you next time on Upwards.